What's up, guys, and welcome to another video. I've been asked about this video right here for several months now to be made, but I didn't want to make it until what I thought was going to come to fruition has actually happened. Today that happened. Or I should say this last day or two. What had happened was, and anyone who I had been theory crafting with on mages or anything else, everybody has been asking me in 5.2, Nash, what spec are we playing in 5.2? What spec are we playing in 5.2 for mages? Here's the problem: is we all knew that Arcane is broken on live. Okay, currently the way that it is on live, Scorch Weaving, staying at 6 stacks the entire fight, and managing your mana that way is literally how the spec works on live, right? We all knew that was broken because of the amount of damage it's doing. We are the top DPS spec in the game on live, okay, as an Arcane mage. The reason we were there is obviously when 5.1 hit, and there was a couple of us that called it ahead of time, was as soon as they removed that cooldown that they had put on Pyroblast on the PTR and changed the way that your combustion worked to just count as Ignite, it was a monster buff. Very few people figured that out before the patch came out. Blizzard did not. And when the patch came out, you saw fire mages blowing disgusting numbers all over every raid boss in the world. It didn't matter. If you were a fire mage, you were beating everybody on the meters by disgusting amounts. What did Blizzard do? They immediately nerfed the entire spec to the absolute floor, reducing the critical mass to the point where it literally killed fire. Okay? They killed it. It was not the nerf to anything else. It was the nerf to critical mass that just destroyed fire. They did buff it back up a touch. It is still extremely RNG, okay? So let's look at what people are saying coming 5.2 and what we're going to be dealing with as mages. Again, keep in mind, things still can change, but it seems to be getting a little bit better. It seems to be kind of making littler changes now after yesterday's patch than it is on anything else. And particularly, Fire and Frost have not really been affected a ton. It is pretty much the consensus at this point that in about 530 item level, which is going to be roughly what you get when you get your heroic gear, okay, including the tier 15 bonuses, okay, the 4-piece bonus, fire will probably be the top spec. However, the trick with that is you cannot really it's just so RNG until you can get to a certain point of critical strike rating that it almost becomes irrelevant to try. If you're fine with like a completely RNG spec where one pull you may pull 150k, the next pull you may pull 90k, literally that's going to be the difference until you hit these gear levels. It's going to be disgusting. And I'm just talking general differences between. You could literally see a 60% decrease difference between different pulls based on RNG and things like that. It doesn't matter how good of gameplay you have. It's because of the way that Ignite works now, and because of the way that gear scales. Fire will be good later on in the patch, earlier or more than early on. The good news for mages, okay, is Frost has been messed with. Okay, the scaling for Frost, that was the biggest issue, was Frost scaling sucks, right? It's pretty much stack int, then crit, then haste, in their respective amounts, of course. But the biggest thing that everybody complained with Frost is the scaling of the spec. You didn't see the damage increases the way you do with, say, Arcane or Fire, okay? They tried to fix that a little bit by the way that Frostbolt spell power scaling has been increased tons. They removed that debuff so you don't have to build up your stacks. And they've also increased the amount of Fingers of Frost procs that you get, which is your free Ice Lances and everything else. So what we're really looking at here, okay, is the nice thing is crit and haste are good for fire, crit and haste are good for Frost, right? The nice thing that I think you'll see a lot of mages doing come 5.2 is playing Frost to start and Fire when they can, gearing up the exact same way. The reason I say this is because the tier 15 bonuses for Frost mages is not that powerful. Frost is going to be one of those specs where your cleave damage and your single target burst damage is going to be awesome. You are going to just rock numbers out. The problem is the in between your cooldowns time is what's really going to suck. Okay, that's what you're going to notice with Frost is you have extreme utility, you have pretty good mobility with taking invocation, as well as all the Fingers of Frost procs, the Frost Firebolt procs, your dots and everything else. You do have an ability to move quite a bit more than you do with, say, Arcane at the current moment, obviously. So that's going to be a bonus for you. You are going to enjoy that a little bit better. However, here's what I'm going to tell you. You are gearing up the same Frost and Fire typically for the most part, okay? Unless something really crazy comes in the next couple weeks before the patch comes out. I don't foresee that happening. I foresee Blizzard um, kind of evening themselves out a little bit and kind of making smaller changes now going into the new patch. I will say this. I will probably end up playing Frost to start. We'll see how it goes for a couple weeks. If all the mages are in consensus and the numbers that I've ran, this is what they say, is you will probably end up playing Frost to start and Fire. Well, you're asking, well, what happened to Arcane? They destroyed Arcane. Blizzard has absolutely 100% killed Arcane mages. You will not be Arcane and be competitive. It is now impossible. The reason being, they have made it so Invocation, if you take that talent, you now if you evocate as Arcane, it drops your stack, so you can't Arcane or you can't evocate Weave, which is what people were doing in response to Scorch Weaving. You were seeing Arcane mages doing some of the most disgusting damage on the PTR over the last couple weeks, and the reason wasn't due to the spell amount; it was because we could evocate Weave. Blizzard, not only did they take away our evocation weaving, they have also reduced our spell power scaling and our damage by about 14% on every single spell that matters. Okay, so not only can you pretty much not use evocation, or if you do, it's pretty much worthless. Like, you have to really play with it, and you're going to end up pretty much going back to Rune of Power, even though they've nerfed that as well. So what Blizzard has essentially done is they've said, okay, well, we played Fire, we killed Fire. We buffed Fire a little bit back up. Everyone started playing Arcane. We are now killing Arcane, okay? They have not made changes that are so small that you're going to be like, okay, well, now we're in line with everybody else. No, what Blizzard has done is not have any idea how the mechanics of the spec work, to the point where now they've destroyed the entire spec to where no one will ever play it in 5.2. It doesn't make sense. You will not see the scaling come anywhere near Frost or Fire, which is sad, because Frost and Fire, Frost was actually pretty viable. Fire, obviously, as you know, on live right now, almost nobody's using it because of the RNG and the amount of crit that you have to have in order to kind of get back to where you were pre 5.1, when Fire was good, not amazing. Okay. This is what we're talking about, is that's what you're going to see in the next upcoming patch, is you're going to be seeing a lot of people playing Frost until they can hit a certain crit level or gear level, and the scaling starts to really damper. What you're going to notice if you were to make a graph, okay, is Frost is going to go up, but very, 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 very slowly. Okay, whereas Fire is going to be one of those specs that goes up like this. Okay, it just, the way that it scales with gear, with the int, the crit, and the haste that you can get, especially the crit rating. Okay, you stay at that X amount of haste cap, you move on to the crit rating, and you're really going to see your numbers just absolutely explode once you get up into that top echelon of gear. Going into 5.3, the following tier, Fire will definitely be the top spec, just because of the way the scaling works, unless Blizzard changes something in the next couple weeks. I've put off making this video because I knew what was going to happen, is Blizzard was going to nerf buff, try to figure things out. But they honestly have no idea what they're doing with mages. They really don't. At least what I've seen is every other class is getting these buffs, right? The problem, what they were doing with mages, was they didn't understand the problem with mages. Okay, the problem with Arcane mages was very simple. We wanted to find a way to stay at maximum stacks, because that's how you get the maximum amount of damage, correct? So as soon as they said, well, now Invocation's got half the cooldown, and you only need to complete it once to get that buff, well, you can still get 1 or 2 ticks, get your mana back, and keep casting, right? So that's what people were doing. They were just weaving that in. Now that they've killed that, you literally, you can stay at your 4 stacks or whatever, but the problem is once you evocate, you lose them. So you're going to barrage before you evocate, going back up to the top, and then doing it that way. The problem is your rotation is going to be so janky, and you're so movement inhibited already, just based on you really need to stand still for Arcane to really shine, is you need to just be a straight up turret, right? Like you just don't move. You just pam, 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 pam. None of the fights that I've seen in PTR are that conducive to arcane. There's not a lot that are real cleave damage fights. So again, like I said, frost will still be okay. Any cleave damage fight, frost is going to be really good. But then you also have combustion. So you're going to see fire and frost really come back and dominate in 5.2. There's really no way around that. The problem and the thing that we're going to run into is, are they going to be viable enough to really compete with the top specs? Obviously, this is where bringing the player comes into play. I do not believe that any of the 3 mage specs will be the top spec on 5.2 once 5.2 actually hits live. But as far as I can see, guys, you're going to be playing Frost, and then you're going to be playing Fire. Once the patch actually officially drops, don't worry. I will do guides for Frost, and I will do a guide for Fire as well. It hasn't changed a ton, but just to kind of go over some of the subtle nuances of the patch and go over all those things with you guys. So don't worry, I will do that for you. I can't see Arcane getting a guide made because I have a feeling it's just going to be so terrible that no one's even going to use it. So we'll see what happens there. But I did want to make this video to let you guys know kind of the state of mages as it stands today. Now, again, we are not live. There still can be some updates and changes to the mage. But for right now, we need to just kind of sit back and be ready for whatever Blizzard gives us. If you can go out and maybe get some... some gear ready, maybe have a couple of sets ready. Don't DE anything, guys. If it has hit and crit on it, keep it. Or if it has crit and haste on it, keep it, because we're probably going to be using it when 5.2 drops. Again, with the way that secondary stats are, we're probably going to be changing a little bit. So keep everything that you can, kind of hold tight right now. Like I said, if they keep going the way things are going right now, Arcane is completely dead. Play it on live and love it while you can if you're an Arcane mage at heart, because after 5.2 drops, you're never going to play it again. I'm sorry. If they keep it the way it is, it's completely, utterly useless. So we'll see if they do change anything. But as always, guys, I'll keep you up to date. We will get those guides. We will get to all the LFR videos that come out when the new patch comes out, all the boss kill videos that come out. I've had a couple people ask me if I'm going to do any more of the guides for the rest of this patch. There's only a couple weeks left, guys, and typically as soon as the new one comes out, nobody cares about the old fight guides anymore, and Fat Boss already has them all up. So I just don't see it being worth my time to make sure that I get all those out. I really feel like that time has kind of come and gone. Pretty much if you're on the fights that we're on now, there's no reason for me to make a guide for it. It's you know what I mean? There's just not enough time for you guys to really get there and progress on the fight to where my information is really going to be prevalent for you. So I'm going to pretty much be gearing up for 5.2 at this point. I will still be putting footage out, but I wanted to bring you a state of the mage as it sits right now. And don't worry, we'll see you guys in the next one.